Have with us Daniel Bielinski and Marek Dojs. Both are from University of Minnesota. Minnesota, jeez. I'm in the wrong state now. University of Mary. Dan is the director of theater, and Marek is a professor of communications and a documentary filmmaker, as well as the director of The Good Father. And Dan was writer and producer on it. So without any further ado, please welcome Daniel Bielinski and Marek Dojs.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marek Dojs, and we've got
Daniel Bielinski.
All right. And we are at the University of Mary, as already mentioned. We both work there as professors, but in our spare time, we actually get to make movies, and that's one of the perks of being a professor. We get to talk about what we get to, what we love, and our art, but then we also get to participate in the creative process. And we created a film over the last couple of months called The Good Father. Let's get that slide up there so we can see it. Awkward moment. There we go. So The Good Father. And so we want to talk to you about how we came about making this film and just kind of the process. Because a lot of times we go to the movies and we see a film and we're like, that's fantastic, I love it. Or, you know, and as artists, we look at these and we say, oh, that's just, I don't think I could do that. Or I could do that, and we set up our great, you know, heights to make this, you know, The Revenant, for example. We're going to go off and make The Revenant, remake it here in Bismarck. And then it ends up not turning out exactly what we expect it to. Because there's a lot that goes into it. And so we want to kind of give you a little bit of the behind the scenes. All the way from this message, this quote that Dan gave me back in February 2015, simply saying, hey, let's shoot a film when school lets out. To 8 months later, it was 8 months, right? Something like that. 8 months to November when we have the trailer of our film. So we're going to roll this for you really quickly. So literally, it started in February with Dan saying that to me, and in November, we had this, and we are now getting it out to festivals. We'll be playing tonight at 7. I will say that more than once today, by the way. But we wanted to get into this, is how long did it take to do this, and how, you know, what goes into all of these different parts of making a film like The Good Father. As you can see here, this is kind of our breakdown of how it all ran for us. About 40% in production, only about 5% in production, 50% in post, and then another 5% in distribution. So we want to spend some time in going through all these different areas and giving you an insight into some of that. And some of these things that we're going to hit on in pre-production are scripting, storyboarding, the costing of the film, the location scouting, and the scheduling. And the production will hit on the shooting and the production audio. And then in post-production, editing, critique sessions, the coloring, the scoring of the music, post-production sound, the Foley and the mix that we ended up going with, and then finally distribution, which will include private screenings, film festival screenings, and then just general distribution. So I'm going to hand it over to Dan, who's going to talk to you a little bit about pre-production and his role in coming up with the story.
Okay, so every film obviously starts with a story, and I'm just going to talk briefly about the story of The Good Father and how it evolved. It evolved really around very practical considerations. Obviously, a story comes from the imagination, but practically speaking, I had certain limitations that I was going to deal with. I had just arrived in Bismarck. I didn't know any other actors here, so I was like, well, who do I got? Well, I got myself. I got a baby. Babies are always magic on screen because they're pure spontaneity, so I thought, okay, I can make a story about a man and a baby. And I was like, well, I'm going to be shooting in Bismarck and Mandan. Are there interesting places to shoot in Bismarck and Mandan that can also be cheaply obtained? And I was like, well, one thing I noticed is there are a lot of trailer parks around Bismarck, and I thought, well, that might be an interesting place to shoot a film, and also a place that would be inexpensive to shoot. So it became a story about a man and a baby in a trailer park. And then I was like, well, who can I use as the supporting cast? And I'm the director of theater at the University of Mary, so I have acting students. And I thought it would be great to give them an opportunity to act in a professional film. So I got a supporting cast, all UMary students. So my point here, what I can relay to you is just when you're making, if you're living in Bismarck, Mandan, and you're writing the script for a film, make it something that's doable for Bismarck and Mandan. Do something that you can do well with the resources that you have, with the people that you have, with the money that you have, with the locations that you have. Don't set it in medieval Europe or on the Great Wall of China or on the streets of New York City. Use what you got. We had the story. I had the story of The Good Father in my head, and obviously now I needed to start putting it down on paper. I started writing the first draft in the beginning of March. We shot the film in the middle of May. That gave me 2.5 months to develop the script. It went through 33 revisions before we arrived at the final shooting script that we took to set in the middle of May and shot the film based on. 33 revisions, 33 drafts for an 18-minute film. When I probably got to the 10th draft, I started showing Marek the drafts, and he would give me feedback. He would give me notes. He would present the problems that he perceived, and I would take it home, and I would work out. I would come up with new ideas. I would make new drafts. I'd give them to Marek. He'd say, okay, yeah, I like that now, but now I think there's maybe a problem here. We'd have this dialogue back and forth. It's very important as you work together on a film that you have a collaborative process, that you have a sounding board, a friend, a partner that you can bounce things off. Because we all get bad ideas, and it's important to have someone to tell us that for the sake of the finished film. One of the ideas that didn't make it was at the beginning, Jeremiah, the main character, was supposed to be working at a bingo hall. That's how I originally conceived it, because I saw this building, and I thought, this building is amazing. This building is so unique. I mean, you talk about using what you got in Bismarck. I just looked at this. I had never seen anything like this before. I thought, I got to make my character work here. We ended up nixing the idea because it didn't contribute enough to the story. Okay, so once we got to the end of April, we had a working draft. It wasn't the final shooting script, but we had enough of a solid script. Mark and I both agreed that we were ready to take it to the next step, and Marek took over from that point.
Right. Now, as Dan mentioned, it's really important to have that sounding board to work with. As Dan would be bringing me scripts, my job was to read them. I was a little bit further away from the story. Dan being, right in the midst of the writing, going through it. I kept a little bit of distance from that process so that I could take a little bit more of an objective eye to the script. I would look at the script. Apart from having written anything, I wasn't married to any of the dialogue. I wasn't married to any of the scenes. I was just looking at it from an objective point of view. And I could then give him feedback that was constructive. It's important to have that feedback to develop your story as best as possible. Now, about right when we started to get the script scenes laid down, my job as a director was to begin to visualize the story. Film is it's a visual medium. And so we need to be constantly figuring out how we can communicate something visually. It doesn't always have to be in the script. And this is one thing that we do when we start spending a lot of time in scripting. We might have to describe everything. We might have to have our main character say, I'm really, really mad right now. Or, hey, let's get something to eat, I'm hungry. And the job of the visualization, and really what happens in film, is how can we show this without saying those things? And so my job would be then to take the script, to look at it, kind of start saying, all right, how can we communicate this visually? How can we examine this? And then I would take it to storyboarding. Storyboarding is a process that I think a lot of people, a lot of my students, do not like it. They say, give me the camera, let me go out there and start shooting. Having pre-visualization is so important to ensure that your film will have some level of success. And people not being confused watching it. So pre-visualization is really important. Storyboarding can take any form, from stick figures on paper to taking your actors out on set and taking still photographs of the different places and of your different scenes. It's important to get that view. I did my storyboarding on an app that's available to you guys through Apple and through Windows devices, and now available on the computer. It's called Shot Pro. And Shot Pro, what this allows you to do is to build a three-dimensional world and then place your camera within it to actually build up your frames. Right here we've got two examples of two frames that I built. They're animation programs, but they're not designed to be final pieces. It's designed to give us an idea. So I want to give you an example of a scene that I storyboarded. We have this scene right over here. It's very early in the film. Jeremiah has kind of had a bad day at work. He's on his way home. He's lost in his own mind. And as he's driving home, his neighbors across the street with a young child, they're walking home, they're taking a walk, and they get into a big verbal argument. And they do it not on the side of the road, but in the middle of the road, blocking Jeremiah's path to even get into his house, and he's stopped. As he's waiting for them to get out of the way, he gets frustrated, he honks the horn. This is the line from the script right here, so we'll read this. It's exterior, Jeremiah's house in the evening. Jeremiah turns into his street. A couple is walking together, pushing a stroller with a baby, fighting loudly in the middle of the road. The couple stops in front of his driveway, arguing violently. Jeremiah stops in his car, and watches them fight, waiting for them to move on so he can pull in. His eyes go to the baby, when suddenly he slams his hand down on the wheel, violently honking the horn. The couple turn towards him. The man, what the hell is your problem? Jeremiah apologetically shaking his head, sorry. So that's the scene. How did I visualize it? This is the storyboard, and sorry for the bad animation and for the music, but it gives you an idea of what I was thinking about when I was putting this scene together. Thank you, you're too kind. Now, obviously, there's a lot of problems with the program because there are no trailers, a lot of school buses, though. So visually, it does the same thing, though, right? It does the same thing. I don't need it to be perfect. I need to see if the frame is going to work. All right? I need to see if the frame is going to work and if it's going to best tell that story of showing a growing frustration inside my character. And this is the storyboard that we worked off to actually create the scene and to shoot the scene, which we'll show you a little bit later on. But what I'd like to do right now is actually bring two people up from the audience, and you guys are going to get to do a little shot proing up here on the side. I'm going to give you a quick overview of that, and we're going to storyboard this scene right here. This is the opening of the film. We've got. Do you want to pick two people really quickly?
Sure.
This is the opening of the film. We have. It's outside the restaurant. Jeremiah is taking a break. He's listening to some music. He's sitting on the ground, and so it's outside the back of the restaurant. And we have got his boss coming out to him and getting him to come back into work. And so that's the opening of the movie. So we've got our two people coming down right now.
Oh, we got 3 people now.
3 people. We only have 2. Well, one could stand and watch.
All right.
Now, come on up here.
Did you want to read the story, Marek? Or did you want to read the script? Or you want me to take
I think
over?
give it over. You guys want to come over here?
Okay.
All right, so as I am working with them over here, Dan's going to talk to you a little bit more about casting and location scouting, and I'm going to work with them, and we'll get their scenes up.
Okay, great. So while Marek was stepping into his role as director of the film and started to really visually storyboard the film, I was stepping into my role as producer. I had to do lots of nitty-gritty things in order to make this film script a reality. I had to cast it. I had to find crew for it. I had to find equipment for it. I had to find locations where we would actually shoot it. I had to budget the film to make sure it was financially possible. So I started with casting. I talked with the people in town who knew actors. I talked with Dan Rogers from BSC. I talked with Amber Bernhardt from Dakota Stages, and they helped me find actors. Can I have my screen back up? Okay, we found Mike McNeil. We found Brian Brady. We found Marlene. We found Clarissa. We found George, all through those resources. Then I had to put together a crew, and for the rest of the supporting cast, I was able to use UMary students, as I mentioned. Then I had to put together a crew. At the top of my list for getting a crew, I had to find a cinematographer, a good cinematographer who would actually shoot the film. I flew in a cinematographer who had worked on a feature film that I did in New York. His name is Alva. There he is. He shot it on his red Epic Dragon in 6K. It was beautiful, and it was amazing to get him. Then I put together a crew of local professionals to support him. We had Dave and Carson from DNN Cinematics. They were in the first workshop. We had Nolan Johnson from Quantum Productions. We had Jason Heppel. We got help from Jim and Mary at Dakota Media Access. We got a lot of equipment through them. I also had to rent equipment from Minneapolis, from Chicago, and from Fargo. This was a lot of producing work that I had to do, a lot of paperwork, a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls just to make all these things happen. I also had to go scouting for locations, the locations that I needed for my script. I had to find 6 different locations. There were 6 different places where we shot the film. This is a scouting photo that I took of the wall outside of the restaurant where Jeremiah works. This is a scouting picture that I took. This is what it looks like on film. Second location I had to find was the kitchen where Jeremiah works. It's not a very bright picture. Maybe we could dim the lights a little bit. This is the kitchen where Jeremiah works. That's what it looks like in the scouting photo. That's what it looks like on film. The third location that I had to find was a very important one. This is the trailer. This is where the bulk of the action took place. I got to know the owner of a trailer park through one of my crew members. He was the owner of the trailer park, and he had a vacant trailer, and he said, yes, you can use it for a month for free. It was amazing. We couldn't have done it without that generosity. This is a scouting photo of the trailer. That's what it looks like on film. This is the inside of the trailer, vacant scouting photo. This is what it looked like on film. It was the end of the year at the University of Mary, so everybody was moving out of their dorms. So at the end of April, while the guys were moving out of their dorm, I drove a pickup truck to the dumpster outside the guy's dorm, and I got some real treasures out of there. I got a beer-soaked couch and some big barrels of cheese puffs and just random stuff. All the stuff that you see in the photo essentially came out of a dumpster. And it made a beautiful mess on screen, if smelly. Another location I had to find was a government building to serve as social services. This is the Burleigh County Courthouse. That's what it looks like in the scouting photo. That's what it looks like on film. I had to find a drugstore. This is the You Mary bookstore. That's what it looks like on film. I had to find a park. We found Lions Park, and that's what it looks like on film. So, as I was doing that, I was also budgeting the film. I had to make sure it was financially doable. We didn't have a lot of money to make this movie, so I had to make sure that every dollar counted. And wrapped up in that was scheduling the film. I had to schedule this as tightly as I possibly could because every day of production costs thousands of dollars. The reason for that is that I had to pay daily rates to the professional members of my crew. I had to pay daily rates to rent equipment from Fargo, from Minneapolis, and from Chicago. And I had to feed anywhere from 15 to 20 people on the set every single day. We are on set 12 hours a day. That means at least 2 meals. This runs into thousands of dollars per day. 6 days of shooting is what we narrowed it down to for this 18-minute film. 6 days of shooting. We were on set for 12 hours a day. Some of the You Mary folks who served as production assistants were there more like 14 hours a day. And as producer, I was there probably 16 to 18 hours a day. But that's the schedule that we had to have in order to make this film financially doable. Are we good, Marek?
We're still working away here. We ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to show you the world that we are creating here in our Shop Pro. Kind of give you guys a view of what they're doing. All right, so this is what they are working on right now. We've created a three-dimensional world for our opening scene. So we've already seen the location that they're working in. So we've come in and created this world.
This was that really crappy wall that you saw. That was the wall outside the restaurant where Jeremiah works in that first picture that you saw.
There we go. And you guys got it there? There we go. We can move in now. So here we have our scene, and in the scene we have our camera. So let me pull up the camera here so you guys can see what that will look like here. So we have that's our light. Whoa. This is not working as well with the AirPlay on here. So here's our camera. We can move our camera around. Up in the top corner here, we have the frame that we're using. We're going to bring our camera a little bit closer so you can see as we move our camera around, wherever our camera is right now. There we go. So we place our cameras in, and we'll do that. We'll just move on, and we'll let them finish here. You got that? Did you lose your camera there? No, I moved the wall. You moved the wall. All right, so we'll let you guys continue doing that. So as they're going to continue doing that, we're going to get into the production scene. This is actually the scene that we storyboarded here. So now that we have an idea of what the scenes are going to look like, we have the locations, we have the actors, we know how much time everything is going to take. Really important because as filmmakers, we rely on other people. We're relying on our actors, we're relying on all these people, and it costs money to make movies. So we have to do it as efficiently and as cost-effectively and timely as possible. So that's why our production phase only comes into 5% of our time. Because if we're well planned and we know what we need to do, the shooting and the capturing of the audio is all designed. We know exactly what we're doing. So we'll know on this particular shot, we're going to need a dolly. And so if we have the dolly there, that's going to take us a little bit longer. So scenes that we have, for example, in the top left here, that we utilize the dolly, we made sure we spent a little bit more time with that. We didn't plan anything too pressing immediately afterwards. We had to dress a number of the scenes down here. So we have the scene down here of the little trash area. Did you happen to bring fake baby with you today?
No, sorry, fake baby's
So,
taking a nap.
as I tell my students, it's really, Dan wasn't one of my students, so when he said, hey, I've got a baby, I didn't have time to tell him this, but avoid using children or animals because you can't control either of them, all right? Really difficult to control them. And so it's wonderful we had the baby on, we had the baby on set with us at times, but babies cry. Babies don't do what they're supposed to do. When I would say action, well, that's when he would cry, and we'd want him to be quiet at that moment. So we had to have we had to have some stand-ins, and so we had fake baby down here. Fake baby had an exact wardrobe of the actual baby, Nicholas, and so we had him in particular areas so that we knew that we could shoot these scenes quickly, and we didn't need to see the baby so much. We've also got scenes set up like this. This is a simple scene of Jeremiah's boss, Marty, knocking on Jeremiah's door. Just look at how much setup goes into that. It's a very bright day. We need to have the scrims there, and we need to be able to diffuse that light. We've got our sound guys. We're checking the shots off to the side. We have a lot of stuff that's going on and being set up here. And so we have to work all this stuff into our setting, into our scheduling. We also have to deal with weather. It's May. Our cinematographer was amazed when it started to snow in the middle of one of our scenes. We had to take a break. We had to change some things up. We also had torrential downpours for a good portion of our shooting. We had to shoot at these particular times. This window right here next to the door, we had built a quote-unquote rainproof enclosure for our lights that we had shining in through the window. It took time to do that. And so when we had problems come up, we had to do some rescheduling. We had to move our shooting blocks around. But we got it all done in 6 days. So from when it started to get to the final wrap scene right there, took us 6 days. We took 279 shots, and we filled up 34 rolls, digital rolls of film, which then leads us into the post-production phase. As the editor, post-production is where I really take what the script that Dan gave us, the visuals that I had, the actual video that was created and captured during production, and now start crafting it all together. I spent the first month organizing, plus I had to do some traveling. So I was organizing and traveling at the same time. By July 13th, I had my first cut, a fine cut. I would send the cuts on to Dan so that he would be able to start looking at it. Because as the editor, I need somebody to critique just as much as Dan needed someone to critique his script. So I would send my edit on, and as he was watching it, I was already changing things that I was unhappy with for the next cut. So we had a number of critique sessions back and forth. We then arranged other people who were not very close to the film to come in, look at, and people that we trusted, who we knew that could give us good feedback, to look at the work and to give us honest feedback. It took us until the beginning of October to get to what we call picture lock. Everything is exactly where we need it to be. We're not going to be changing anything else. And we can then send that footage on to our colorists and to our post-production sound.
Okay, we should do color. Okay, great. So we went for coloring down to a production house in Minneapolis.
How's it going?
And the question that we had to ask ourselves before we went into the coloring process is what is the sort of film that we are making? What's the tone of the film? And the tone, we answer that question by looking at the elements of the production that were already there. A tone was set by the performances, by the editing, by the cinematography, by the music score that was in place, and by the set dressing. This all conveyed a tone. We agreed early on that we had a dark psychological thriller. So then we asked ourselves, well, what films or what filmmakers could serve as a visual reference point for us as we looked to mold the color scheme of our film? Somebody that I seized on pretty quickly was David Fincher, who creates very dark, twisted movies. The image up there, Brad Pitt, that's from the movie Seven. He directed Gone Girl, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, Social Network, Zodiac, those films if you've seen them. But very dark, twisted films. So you can see very dark, cool, bluish colors. There's an image from The Wrestler, 2 images from the movie Compliance. So we had a visual, we had a model going down to Minneapolis. Now, before I show you some before and after, without color, then with color, I just want to mention again, reiterate that we were shooting on the Red Epic Dragon, which is the top-of-the-line camera. David Fincher shoots on the Red. The Hobbit films were shot on the Red Epic Dragon. The Martian was shot on the Red. This is an absolutely top-of-the-line camera that we had, and we had a very capable cinematographer behind the camera. The color grading process is not a process of fixing the mistakes that we made in production. It's another step in the creative process. That's a very important step. All right. This is an image from the first scene. You can see warm, fuzzy colors. This looks like a dark thriller. This looks kind of warm. That doesn't. This looks, again, warm, fuzzy. That looks very thrillerish. That's scary. That's scarier. That's Megan McNeil's father. Yeah, this is dramatic. That's more dramatic. That's, things are bad. Things are really bad. Okay, and then for these final couple shots, there was a flashback sequence that occurred in the film, and we wanted to set it apart from the rest of the film. So we created this very blue, almost approaching black and white look for the flashback sequences. These next 2 images are from the flashback. There we go. And there we go. Almost approaching black and white. Okay, great. How are we, Marek?
We're good. We're ready to look at their scenes here.
Perfect.
All right, so we're going to jump back here a couple of slides so we can show you the storyboard of the opening that we did for this opening scene, and then we're going to look at the example of what they have done for theirs. So it starts with the opening of the sign of the family restaurant. Shot Pro doesn't have signs for a family restaurant, so it had a portrait of an owl. So that's why this starts with an image of a portrait of an owl. But once again, just to give us a basic idea of how we want it to look. Dan worked a long time on that scene because he kept running into the door. He just couldn't get through it. All right, so let's look at we've got 2 examples here. Is it still not coming up? We can't get that control up. That's weird. Can we get one of our tech guys to look at this? Because that's not, we can AirPlay this one here. There we go. So we should have one of the iPads coming through to you guys right now. All right, great. All right, so this is the scene that has been shot right here. So this is shot number 1 by Juron. Juron has designed shot number 1. So this is the 3-dimensional world down here. This is the shot frame that we're looking at right here. So this is what he has done in the short amount of time that we've provided him. We have the entire scene that we've just seen. I've padded it out a little bit more with some more elements that are there, and let's watch what he's got for us. So go ahead and hit play for us. So you see the boss off to the corner. He gets up and does this really cool moonwalk type of thing, walking on air right there. And he goes straight through the door. And then what was your second shot that you've got there? There we go. So a different view, actually a little bit closer to what we ended up having. His boss dressed in military fatigues, because, you know, that's how bosses are, right? All right, so same, you know, once again, kind of a wide concept. We decided to go for the wide, and we had a close-up as well. Let's have a look at our next one. Did we get the next one up? Is it connecting? All right, fantastic. There you go. You want to pull that up? You'll have to rewind it there. There we go. So this is Lexi's. All right, so the thing that we were looking for is we were trying to make Jeremiah kind of seem lonely, kind of on the outskirts. So the fact that these two, the shots that we've seen so far have kind of kept Jeremiah to the edge of the frame helps visually kind of present that he's on the edges of his world that we are now being introduced into. Let's have a look at the second shot there. The boss has the powers as well, so. Now, what this shot allows us is it begins to get us thinking about the edit. We've got the first shot, we can then edit to the next shot. It would be a nice, smooth transition. It gives us lots of abilities to kind of jump around this. So Shot Pro and storyboarding in general allow you to start putting your film together so that you're prepared for that production. So let's give our two volunteers a hand.
We were lucky enough to get the talents of a UMary student, Matt Charlie, to compose the complete musical score for the film. So we're going to bring him up. Can we turn on let's flip that forward. We can listen to a little bit of it.
Sure.
Where's the click?
I've got it right here.
Okay, thanks. It's happening? There we go. I guess we can sit in these chairs, Matt. Okay, great. So what you're listening to right now is the demo that Matt originally sent me after he read the script, and he visited set once, right? Yeah, visited set once. This was his demo that he sent to me based on that, without even seeing the footage, which is cool. Great. And now let's skip ahead to the actual score that made it into the film. Happening? There we go. This is, of course, just a small sample. Can we jump that? Oh, that's it. Okay, good. So this is just a small sample of what you're doing. But maybe, Matt, you can talk about the process of developing the musical score and the process that we had, or you just in developing the ideas.
Sure. Well, I have less experience in film than Dan and Mark both, but a lot of experience in music. And so Dan came to me. He actually saw me playing in an Irish band that I'm in, and thought that I might be able to do this, which was flattering. And I thought that I'd like to give it a shot. So I did. Like we just showed you, I visited the set one time, and all I really knew about it was that it was going to be sort of a dark thriller. Then I got the script, read through it a few times, and started developing some ideas. And then actually, if we were to listen through the whole original demo, which I don't want to do, it's a lot heavier. There's drums in it, there's guitars, all kinds of stuff, and ultimately, as you've heard a little bit, and you'll see again if you come tonight, it is a lot more minimal. And Dan and I actually were working pretty closely on the score for how long was that? I mean, quite a while. Like we did a lot of really minute detail work with it, because it's not a huge film. It's 18 minutes and it doesn't have a huge cast. It doesn't have a bunch of subplots. So we needed to keep it so that the score wasn't overbearing. It wasn't, sort of overwhelming the film. And so I guess the process for writing a soundtrack for a film, I've been writing music for 12, 13 years, but for a film it was a lot different. I had to get everything perfectly lined up and hit every cue. And the thing is with films, there's not an exact cue that you need to hit. We kind of were just feeling it out and seeing, what would best sort of undercut this moment, and should we have silence here? Because the thing with a film is music is important and silence is equally important. So to have music going the whole time can be just obnoxious. And especially with this one, there's a lot of moments of tension and of sort of
Tension release.
Right, exactly. And we talked about that, right away. And so I used very few instruments in the ultimate, in the final cut. I just used a couple synths and maybe some affected piano and like some synth bass and stuff. So there's not a lot of rhythmic motion. There's not a lot of pulse to it. But we just wanted to kind of have that feeling of tension. And then release it when appropriate. It's a lot of it's in a minor key. There's a couple of moments where it kind of modulates to a more major key when happier things are happening. But I think it was a great experience and an interesting experience for me because, like I said, working very closely with Dan, because he wasn't writing the music, but he knew, having written it and acting in it and being the producer of it, he knew what he wanted for the most part, and so it was great being able to kind of, put the two of us together and see what we came up with. And ultimately, I think it works well. You guys can tell us after you see it,
good.
But yeah,
it's great.
I think it's. It was a great, experience and really cool to be able to learn about scoring a movie, and even a small, a short film, 18 minutes. It took a long time, and the whole process, obviously, as you're seeing here, took quite a while too. But I guess that was my part of the process.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
All right.
So music is one element of post-production sound. We get to put it in there, and it's all designed to really pull the story through, just like coloring as well. But we also have, we had an opportunity to have our film Foleyed. So those of you who don't know what Foley is, it's an art that comes all the way from the vaudeville days of people making sound effects. And because when we're out on set, we're not concerned about the recording of footsteps. We're not concerned about the recording of trains in the background or of cars. We're concerned with the dialogue. So when we want to put together a final film, we want to make sure we have all those other elements. So we had the opportunity to have the film Foleyed in Minneapolis, and we actually had people stepping on the floor and getting that recorded, people opening and closing doors, making sound effects with sandbags and all sorts of things.
Almost every single sound that you hear in the film, apart from the dialogue, was Foleyed in.
Yeah. So we've got some examples of that and how the sound and the Foley, or the sound and the color, how that just simply adds to the raw footage that we've got and how it really helps tell that story. So we've got two scenes. The opening, this is the one that we just storyboarded. So you can see how that looks, and then also the fight scene, so you can see how that looks and sounds before and after. Sound speed. Action.
Jeremiah! Break's over. Can I get a little help?
You should be grateful they want to come over and see your story, yeah. Lie, honey, asshole! I've been working like a slave at the clinic!
Blitz, please!
Oh, well, you've
Yo,
been
you
just
don't
sitting
sit on
around
your
and
ass
drunk and
all
high.
day.
And what have you been doing?
You know what I've been doing? I've been looking up What's your problem?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you better be sorry. I'll kick your ass up and down the street.
Some people!
God, the audacity of some of these people around here.
That's right! Walk away! Walk away like you always do!
Shut your mouth! Shut up! Shut your fat nose! Get your right mouth on the side! What are you?
Oh, you're right!
I'm getting out of here! Yeah, fine! See how you like it?
So as you can see, big difference, right? The shot looks good. We got the dialogue, but then when it comes to the post-production sound and coloring, it just simply adds to the weight of the story. So coming back down here to the last section of what it means to make a film, all of this stuff that we've done so far, the pre-production, the production, the post-production, it's all designed to get the film screened to people, to get it out to an audience. If we spend all this time working around and we're like, oh, finally, that was done, let's make another film. That's not the point. In fact, the best part of filmmaking for me is showing the work to audiences and seeing them respond where they're supposed to, laugh at the places where they're supposed to. So it's important to try to get your film seen by people. So we would do private screenings here in Bismarck and around. We would then do public screenings at film festivals. That's kind of what we're doing right now, tonight at 7 o'clock here. We're getting it out, and then eventually we'll talk about general distribution. You know, how do we get it out there? And you know, as you're checking out at Walmart, you see it on the side there saying, "Hey, it's a $5." You know, but you know what I mean. But getting it out to people. So some of the things that we did here was we had a number of there was some press that was done. We had a website. And we just started submitting it to film festivals. We submitted it to regional film festivals because, hey, let's work up the fact that we're from North Dakota and get this out there. And we started to submit to some larger ones. And we're just at the very beginning of this. And these are just some of the places that we've been screened so far. And we're still in the midst of that distribution phase. So, you want to?
Yeah, great. No. That all sounds good. Maybe we can bring now, there were over half the crew of the film that you'll see tonight at 7 p.m. here was composed of students from the University of Mary. So I wanted to take this time to just bring up the students who were part of that crew. Not all of them could come, but please come up now. Sarah, that's you too. Brittany, Rachel, Marley, what are you doing? Come on.
They're running away now.
And they can just talk for a minute about what their experience was on the set. Oh, good, we got that.
Come on up, why don't you come?
I asked them to prepare one fun story or story of hardship or story of frustration or something.
All right, we'll start here where the microphone's closest.
Okay, I haven't really decided yet if should I tell a funny one or not funny one. But I was in it a little bit, you saw that. I also ended up ADing, and I was responsible for hair and makeup. So that week was a very busy week for me.
It was your car, too.
And it was my car, the really crappy car. My husband drives that car around town. So it was a very busy week. So I guess I'll tell a not so fun story. So it was like our last day of filming, and they were in this trailer, and when you're in that trailer, all of us can't be in the trailer at the same time if they're doing a shot, that spans the whole trailer. So they kicked us out. It was like they kept Dan and the baby and Marek and the cinematographer. That was pretty much the only people that were allowed in the trailer. And so we were sitting out in Marley's car, just waiting to be needed. And I think Dan was getting a little frustrated, and we were all frustrated and exhausted, but Dan comes out and just screams my name, "Brittany, "We need you!" Like, screams it, and I'm just like, "I'm sorry, I wasn't there when you needed me." Like, runs inside, and I'm just like, I felt so bad, like I had done something wrong, but it wasn't that. It gets to be a stressful situation. You have a lot going on, and there's a lot of like, hurry up, get it done, and then wait for the next time you're needed. So there's a lot of that going on.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I was technically the script supervisor, and I really had no idea what that meant. I just kind of came and was like, cool, this is going to be fun. But I learned so much, and I have so much respect for films now. I can't watch a movie the same way anymore because it's an amazing experience. We had a lot of fun, hanging out, because there's a lot of time where they're filming and you just really can't be there. There's just not enough room for you to be hanging out. So we would go and find new places to hang out. We had a lot of great experiences, but there was one night where Nicholas was having a hard time because Lillian wasn't there, his mom.
The baby.
Yeah, the baby. And so we had to like make do and like try and keep him quiet, and that was fun.
Oreo cream. That was the key.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's a baby, but
yeah, I mean, we'd come up with fun things. I had Nicholas duty for one solid night, so that was fun. He was so cute. It was super fun to work with him. So anyway, yeah, we had a great time.
I'm Brittany, and I was one of the assistants on set. And I think one of the most memorable, funny things was when we were going to be filming the scene in the kitchen. In order to prep for that scene, we had to dirty a bunch of plates. So we were in the kitchen making spaghetti and smearing pasta sauce all over plates and pasta, banana peels. And then we had to have a pan that Dan had to scrub. So we had to smear ketchup all over it and put it in the oven to have it burn onto the pan. So the smell of burnt ketchup, I think, will forever be ingrained in my head. So I think that was the one funniest moment for me.
Hi, I'm Marley. I was also an assistant on this movie, and what I remember most is, I don't know if you saw in some of the scenes, but Dan's wearing earrings, and they're clip-on, and Dan being Dan, he didn't keep them on all the time, so he'd put them in his pocket or something, or set them down somewhere, and he would lose them. And so one day, it was my job to find them, and so I'm digging through this beer-soaked couch, and I don't want to talk about it, but I'm pretty sure I contracted a couple diseases. But I found them, and he was no longer allowed to keep track of his earrings because I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. Give them to me.
Hi, I'm Sarah, also known as the checkout girl. Thank you. So my experience with it, I'm not really going to give a story, but acting on film is super difficult. I thought it was, I don't know, it just looked easier than acting on stage, and it's just really hard. I went on there, and I had like 3 lines, and they're like, make sure you smile, oh, and you have to make sure your microphone cord isn't hanging out, you have to make sure, I was standing on a box during it, and I had to like keep my head tilted one way, and I had to make sure I didn't like lean forward, and all the time, make sure you deliver your lines very naturally while, you have to, it's weird, and it was really difficult. So like Rachel said, I have a newfound respect for them. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Thanks, girls. Great, thanks so much for coming.
To view this program again, go to freetv.org or watch on Community Access Television. To order a copy, go to info@freetv.org or call 258-8767.